Welcome to Inside ArtScroll, where the books that we read and the people that write them come to life. In a little bit of a twist, we're no longer inside ArtScroll, we're actually outside ArtScroll in an incredibly holy and lofty place. We're in Shaarei Tzion at the heart of Brooklyn's Syrian Jewish community to discuss a phenomenal book called Hacham Baruch, about the life of Hacham Baruch Ben-Haim, which was literally an amazing, amazing read, multifaceted over many years of the history of the Syrian Jewish community. And it's not just to discuss Hacham Baruch himself, but it's actually to take a moment and realize the incredible growth of the Syrian Jewish community that Hacham Baruch really had a very large part of. So we welcome two incredibly prestigious guests. We welcome the son of Hacham Baruch, Hacham Yaacov Ben-Haim. It's a zchut to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Rabbi Landau.
And Rabbi Raymond Beyda, Shalita, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you so much for having us.
So Hacham, the life of Hacham Baruch really did not start in Brooklyn. It probably started the polar opposite of Brooklyn. Bring us into the not such humble beginnings of your father's life, his contemporaries, where he grew up, because that itself is almost a book.
He grew up in what he called many times Yerushalayim shel Ma'ala. He called it that because he grew up in a place of Kedusha. We had tremendous Talmidei Chachamim that were very close with him and his whole family. And he was so proud of the background and the wonderful people that he grew up with. He grew up, of course, having the great Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Ezra Atiyah, who was the Rosh Yeshiva Porat Yosef. Many of the Sephardic leaders, not only in Eretz Yisrael, but throughout the world, were his students. And there are many stories where our father, Alav Shalom, was so close with the Rabbanim. He had a certain talent that he was not only a brilliant person with a brilliant mind, but practically speaking, he was very observant. He, besides learning in the yeshiva how to be a mohel and a shochet, sometimes somebody's brilliant, but he's not so good with his hands. But he really had both. He was an expert mohel. He actually did beritot in Yerushalayim and over here as well until he had no more time because he was serving as a rabbi of the community. But there were stories where Rabbi Ezra Atiyah would ask him, he was a young man, and he'd ask him to come to the Beit Din with him. And my father would ask him, Rabbi, why are you asking me to come to the Beit Din? You have the biggest rabbanim with you. And the rabbi would tell him, no, they all know the halakha, but you know how to bring the case out to light. You know how to ask the right questions. And he was very keen and observant and perceptive in understanding people. And he grew up with a situation with the yeshiva and the rabbanim.
He was in Porat Yosef, right?
Yes, in Porat Yosef. His best friend was Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. His rabbi, who was after Cham Ezra Atiyah, was Rabbi Yehuda Tzadka. He was the Rosh Yeshiva. He told us that they were really very good friends, him and Cham Ovadia, but he told us the class was a superb class. He would tell me, your father got the best marks in Iyun, even better than his friend Cham Ovadia. And later on, of course, they studied together. They were always together. Even when he came here, they always kept the communication open between them, writing letters. And when Cham Ovadia came to this synagogue, it was the most beautiful welcome because of my father. It was literally a holiday. My father insisted on saying Yehi Shem.
And you didn't say Tachanun,
No
right?
Tachanun, no Tachanun in the morning. And
So he grows up in Yerushalayim, Porat Yosef, Yerushalmi boy, learning Kabbalah, correct, at some point in his earlier years, and then somehow he ends up in Brooklyn. How do you take a holy Svaradi tahor from Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh and get him all the way here? Rabbi Beyda, why don't you chime in here a little bit and share with us about that part of the journey?
Well, the rabbi came to Brooklyn because there was another Yerushalmi Gadol, his grandfather, Rav Yaakov Katzin, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, who came to be the chief rabbi of a relatively very small community called the Syrian community of Brooklyn. And a point came in the late 40s, around 1950, where he needed assistance and he needed help in doing the job as the community grew. And Hacham Baruch came actually to work with him. And so he started at the top. He was already running the community before he worked one day. And it gave him an opportunity to share not only the rabbi's responsibilities, but he married his daughter, Rabbi Yaakov's mother. He became very close to the rabbi, had ultimate respect for the rabbi. But again, I don't know what they call it in English, but I think he was no slouch. There's nothing you could bring up that the rabbi didn't have his handle on. He told me a story once. He said, "Did you ever read Rabbi Moshe Feinstein?" I said, "I met his children, I didn't meet him." He says, "I did." He said, "I went to a wedding, and Rav Moshe was Misadeh Kiddushim. And one of the two parties was Sephardi, and one was Ashkenazi. So they had the Rosh Yeshiva, Misadeh Kiddushim. And he was writing the Ketubah, and Hacham Baruch made a comment, some difference between us and them, as far as how you write the Ketubah, what's the exact wording. And he made a comment under his breath. Rav Moshe turned around and said, "What's your name?" And that's how he met Rav Moshe Feinstein. "What's your name?" There were probably nobody else in the room would even notice that.
And subsequently, if I'm not mistaken, Rav Moshe Feinstein offered the Chacham to learn with him b'chavruta. And did he do it at the end?
He didn't have the time. He apologized, but he was so busy over here with the community, and he felt bad about it. But
This transition was from being a star in Torah where everybody else was a Ben Torah to a community where everybody else was either in wholesale or retail. They worked. The people didn't go to high school. They barely finished elementary school. They were workers. They had families to support. They had things to do. They were born either in the late 30s or early, during the World War II period. And it just wasn't the time to go sit in yeshiva. It wasn't until many years later that the first boys started going to yeshiva from the Syrian community. But they all learned with Hacham Baruch and Magen David. Mm-hmm. The community at large was a public school community. They went to the corner over here. They went to Avenue S. They went to Lincoln High School. They graduated somewhere in the Madison area. And then there were very few who picked on the present that Mr. Isaac Shalom Alav Hashem gave to this community. He opened Magen David. He said, our children without Jewish education will go the way of every other community. And the rabbi definitely believed in that. And with all that he did, he became 7th and 8th grade teacher, both. 7th and 8th grade teacher, Limudei Kodesh, for every child who went to that school. So I was fortunate. I was there in the 7th grade. I was there in the 8th grade. I had him 2 years in a row. And for a school that was new, a school that didn't have a real curriculum, a school that was not made by educators, he built a community of people who are the leaders of Keter Torah, Ateret Torah, Sharei Torah, Yad Yosef. You name an institution, our community that's Torah-based, they learn with Hacham Baruch. The Rosh Yeshiva, the Mashkiach, they're all Hacham Baruch students. They learn Ta'amim, they learn Tanakh, they learn Gemara, they learn Mishnah. They learned about the holidays, they learned how to pray with proper pronunciation. And it made a whole world of difference in the community, even though there wasn't that many kids in the whole school. But the ones who went there became the leaders of the next generation. Everybody else made money. It was a different, and that was his transition, to bring Yerushalayim to Brooklyn.
Chacham, what was it like being in the house? He's a man who had an encyclopedia knowledge of Torah, a man who had a soul and a neshama for Claris that was bigger than ever. Did you realize, like, as a child, the greatness of your father? Like, what did you see on the day-to-day?
Well, let's put it this way. He was a great father. He did spend time with us, despite the fact that he was so busy with the community. He even played sports with us when he felt it was needed. We didn't, of course, realize how great he was until we grew up. And we went to yeshiva ourselves. When we went to Eretz Yisrael, and the rabbis started talking to us, saying, wow, you're the son of Hacham. Wow, unbelievable. And they would start telling us stories about him. And then we started realizing. And we were very proud. And not only ourselves, but our children, who were his grandchildren. They were so proud to, whether it was to walk with him in the street or to be with him in the shul, they were really proud of who their grandfather was because they knew where he came from and who he was. It was a tremendous feeling.
Rabbi Beyda, when did you meet Hacham Baruch first?
7th grade. I mean, he was in the shul, but most people lived in Bensonhurst. And he was in Bensonhurst. And the first people to move to this area started Shari Zion on King's Highway. This was not the build. This didn't open till 60, 61. So the people who moved before that in the mid-50s to late 50s lived over there and prayed over there. And there was no Hacham Baruch sitting in front. But I am proud to say that my bar mitzvah was Parashat Emor, coming up at a theater near you. And he taught me the entire parasha. And he walked from Bensonhurst on that Shabbat to stand next to me in Sharet Zion. I said, Rabbi, you taught me well, I know. He says, I'm not here to correct you. I'm here to enjoy it.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's magnificent.
That's how he felt. If you're going to read the parasha, I should be there.
So there's a book this thick just about, that scrapes the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg about your father's life. But if I ask you to share like one story, one episode in his life that kind of is something that you can connect with, that comes to mind at first, what would that be?
Well, there were a couple of stories before he came to America that really stick out in my mind, just to show the respect that the people in Eretz Yisrael had for him, even though he was a young man. There was one story where a great rabbi in the Sephardic community in Yerushalayim made a big gathering of many rabbanim and lay leaders, and he told them, Rabotai, I feel we have to make a takana. What was the takana? He said, listen, it says in the halacha, a man has to have his head covered when he prays in the shul, when he says Shem Shamayim, when he says berachot. He said, we know that the married women cover their hair, but the single girls are, whether they're in the synagogue or in their homes, they're praying, they're saying berachot, they should also have their head covered. And in front of everybody, he pointed to my father and he said, I want you to make sure that the takana is carried out. And my father got up and he said, Kevod Harav, I have the most tremendous respect for you, but I apologize. I will not be able to carry out the takana in this case. The rabbi was a little taken aback. He said, why not? He said, listen, all the rabbanim in previous generations never said that the single girls had to cover their hair. They all saw it, and if we make this new takana that they did not make, it's as if we're motzi la'az al harishonim. It's as if we're saying, what, they didn't know what they were doing and we know better than them? I'm sorry, I can't do it. He said that and the whole thing fell through. Wow. Later on, when he and Cham Ovadia were supposed to leave Eretz Yisrael to serve in different communities, they were originally supposed to go together to Mitzrayim. But my father's father did not let him go to Egypt. So what happened was he was invited to be the rabbi of an Ashkenazic community in South Africa, in Cape Town. And he went there, he was the rabbi there for 2 years. He made an agreement with them, only 2 years, because he wasn't married, he didn't want to settle over there. And during that period, the Ashkenaz shul loved him. There was a drought for quite a few months. And he was summoned by the governor after the governor went to all kinds of religions and priests and asking them to pray for rain, till his maidservant told him, what are you running all over the place? Why didn't you go to the father of the Jews? She called him the father.
A young man who was the father.
Yeah. And the governor summoned my father, and he told him, listen, we need you Jews to pray for us. We're in a dangerous situation. We're in a drought. We need you to pray for rain. He said, Your Honor, it will be my pleasure. My father went and he summoned the entire congregation, the whole community, that the next day they're all going to leave early from work and come in the afternoon, Selichot, Tehillim, they're going to pray their hearts out, and they all did. And the next day it poured, where they didn't have rain for months. And the newspapers said, the Jews saved the day. It was a big Kiddush Hashem.
Unbelievable.
It's really one of my favorite stories. It's the kind of story you hear from the time of the Tanaim and the
Choni HaMa'ager in the Gemara.
Yeah, Choni HaMa'ager, Rabbi Akiva, it was a beautiful story, and it just shows what koach hatefillah is, when koach of the tzaddik is, that he could have such an effect not only on his own surroundings, but on the entire community and all around him.
That's magnificent. Thank you so much for sharing.
He left, and it was, you're talking about, let's call it 1950. He left around 1950. 60, 70, 80, 90. I'm going to Eretz Yisrael 30 years, 35 years later for my first trip. And everybody hears I'm going. There wasn't a bar mitzvah every week there then. People went and certain people didn't go. So everybody's giving me, go see this rabbi, go see this rabbi, go get a blessing, go get a blessing. That's not my style. I go to East 5th Street, I walk in the door, Chacham, I'm going to Eretz Yisrael. They're giving me all kinds of names for berachot, this mikubal, this guy who folds papers and things happen, all kinds of. He says, Rachamim, the beracha is in the Torah. You go to the Torah. You go see Cham Ovadia. You go see Cham Yehuda Sadka. You go Cham Ben Zion Abba Shaul. You go, and he started naming the Porat Yosef people he grew up with. So I went, and the person made an appointment for me was Rabbi Yehuda Sadka. He finishes his shiur at 11:15. They take me into this room with a long conference table. It's me and my wife and Cham Yehuda Sadka. To me, he's a legend because I heard so many stories about him. And he says, hello, who are you? He says, I'm a student of Hacham Baruch. He told me to come see you and get a beracha. I don't give berachot. I don't give berachot. I said, but my rabbi told me to come here and get a beracha. He says, I don't give berachot. He starts talking to me. Who are you? What's your relation with Hacham Baruch? How long you know? And so now the 5 minutes that I think I have is almost up. I said, Chacham, I have a problem. He says, what? I says, my rabbi told me to come to you to get a beracha. If I go on without a beracha, I didn't do the sivui of my rabbi. He goes like this with his beard. He goes, Hacham Baruch told you? He says, put down your head. Ooh. He gave me a beracha. Wow. Now that's the beginning. 4 years later, 4 years, it's a 5-minute meeting. 4 years later, I go back to Eretz Yisrael. The man who wants to take me around says, I want to go see Cham Yehuda Sadka. So I go to the yeshiva, and he's sitting at a table with the Gemara open. He's looking in the Gemara. I'm standing literally 30 inches from his nose. The table, the Gemara, and me. He did not look up. So I'm standing there, you know the old American trick. He doesn't look up. Finally, he starts to think, and as he's thinking, he sees me standing there. It's like he was taken aback. He looks up and he goes, Mechila, Talmid shechacham baruch ani zocher, et Hashem eneni zocher.
Wow. Fantastic.
He said, I know you're a student of Chacham Baruch. I don't remember your name.
It's incredible.
That's his gadlut. Wherever I went, when I said I'm Chacham Baruch student, he gave me a letter that first trip. He says, you have to deliver this letter to Cham Ovadia. I said, I'm going to go to Cham Ovadia. I'm shaking. So no, you go to the shul. He's in a small shul. He's in the Bet Bishpat HaGadol. He's downstairs. He has a small room. I go, I give him the letter. He reads the letter. He puts it down. Everything goes back to normal. I come on Shabbat, Sudah Shalishit. His Gabbai comes over and says, the right hand of Chacham Ovadia is an empty seat. He tells me, sit there. I said, me? He says, the rabbi told me to go get the Talmid of Hacham Baruch.
Wow.
Are you the Talmid? I said, if I'm anything, I'm the Talmid of Hacham Baruch. They all were asking, who's that man? But all I was a very special thing called Talmid of Hacham Baruch.
That's fantastic. So it's a pleasure and an honor to welcome another son of Hacham Baruch, David Ben-Haim,
I'm in business.
who's joining us as well. If the Talmid of Hacham Baruch got such honor, imagine the son of Hacham Baruch. So you're not just in business. Your brother shared with us so many wonderful things about your father. But if you read the book, you'll see that one thing that's bold, something that always jumps out at you, is the incredible love, the respect, and affection that he had for every Jew, particularly for the people in his Bet Knesset, his Talmidim. Talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Gladly. Thank you very much for having me on, first of all. It's a pleasure to be here. Bezat Hashem, the book is being released tomorrow, 2 weeks before his Yortzeit. It's actually a week before Chaim Ezra Atiya's Yortzeit also. So the love that my father and the people had for each other, kamayim hamayim bepanim kach lev ha'adam le'adam. Shlomo Amir says in Mishleh that the way a person looks in the water and he sees, that's a true reflection of what he is, because it's exactly what he is. But if a person tries to change the reflection, then the reflection changes exactly the way he changed it. Sometimes when a person has something in his heart where he loves the people so much, the people could sense it and they could love him right back. If you walked into the dome on any Shabbat, you saw an amazing thing that you don't usually see. My father's sitting on the stage, and as the people walk in, they go over to him, they kiss his hand, and many of them start kissing him on his cheeks. 1 cheek, 2 cheeks. They get an aliyah, they go to him, they kiss his hand, and then they kiss him in the face again. There was a rabbi from Eretz Yisrael that was here, and he walked in from the side entrance of the dome, and he said, "What's going on over here? Where did the rabbi come from? Did he go to Israel? Did he go to Florida?" Well, the rabbi doesn't take vacations. From 1950 till he passed away in 2005, he went away to Israel maybe 4 or 5 times. He went to Mexico once, Florida once. That was it. He didn't go anywhere. California once. That was it. He didn't go anywhere else. He tells the rabbi, "No, it can't be. Everyone's kissing him." He says, "What do you mean? That's what they do. He's our rabbi. We kiss him. We love him." And it was such a love that it was both ways. The little children would come in, not his grandchildren. Just the little children would run into the shul and sit on his lap. Who sits on the rabbi's lap in the shul? And he would start talking to them, and he would talk to them on their level. The elderly men would come in. They would start singing. Hacham Baruch, you should have a long life. They would start singing to him in Arabic in the middle of the shul right before they started the first minyan upstairs. And the love that they had, and it didn't matter if it was, usually a rabbi is a rabbi of one age group of the community. But every single age group was able to connect with him. He was able to do that because he saw them as students in Magen David. In Magen David, when they were his students, he would drill into them the lessons. As bar mitzvah boys, he would take his hand on their back and go up and down, showing them which way the ta'amim was supposed to go, up or down. He would make tapes. He would tape every single speech, tape every single parasha part, and he would make the child go over and over on the tape, and he would tell him, "Remember, you have to remember you have to go over it over and over when you're not with me." And this way he would drill. He would tell them better to do less pesukim and to do it well than to do more pesukim and not do it as well. So I just wanted really to emphasize that one point about the love back and forth between the people and him, because it was something, as we say in Hebrew, hafle vafele, it was something very much out of the ordinary. If I can discuss one other issue, I would pick on the fact that his ability as a teacher, both in Magen David and otherwise here in the shul, and he taught children, he taught elderly, he taught middle-aged, he has multiple classes, Shabbat during the week. He had an ability to teach a lesson that stuck. Some of his students told me, "I used to cut class every single year. The only year I came to class was with your father." So how is it that he was able to connect both with the children that were not so smart, the children that were smart? He would push them ahead to reach their full potential. He would come into the class, and Rabbi Mansour, I believe, mentions it in the book, and he would start singing the Pirkei Avot. He would do it day after day. He would say, and we're in the Omer now, he would say the day of the Omer and what day it was, Tiferet, Shabbat Tiferet, etc. And he would drill these things into their heads. Some of them have no idea what the concept was. They didn't even know what he was talking about. But it was things that they would later come back to them, that they would be, for those that would learn it, that they would be able to study it. So now he would go down the steps with them to lunch, and he would say, Netilat Yadayim, Hamotzi, Birkat Hamazon, and he would sing it, Netilat Yadayim, Birkat Hamazon, Hamotzi, and he would drill these things into his head. And then it wasn't that only that he was always teaching them, he taught the children with love. Lag BaOmer, which is coming up, he would take them out for recess, 10:30 in the morning. They would have a 15-minute recess. But his class would stay till 12:30. He would let them play baseball for an hour and a half. What was the point? To teach them that it's a different day. It's a holiday. Even though he didn't want to be mevatel Torah, my father was always mosif olech. If you learned a half an hour yesterday, today you have to learn an hour. You have to learn an hour and a half. You always have to learn more and more. But he would teach them that today is a holiday, and the children would come to love him, because all the kids were looking from the windows and they're watching this one class, they're playing baseball, how come we're in class? And he didn't even know anything about baseball, but he would tell them, what are you doing wrong? Why don't you catch the ball? Why don't you watch it when you're hitting? This way you don't strike out. He learned the American lingo, that he was able to connect with them on their level. And there was I'll give you one story. There was a mother in the community that once called him. And she says, Rabbi, I don't know what to do. My husband doesn't want to go to shul on Shabbat. He's not going. So he says, okay, and why do you, he tells him, why do you want him to go so badly? He says, no, I'm very worried about my children. My boys are not going to shul also because he's not going. He likes to go outside to pray in the backyard. It's the summer months. So he said, okay, I'll talk to him. He says, but Rabbi, he says, don't worry, I know. I'm not supposed to mention that we spoke. So he sees the man, and he starts talking to him, and he tells him, how's business? How are things going? He starts talking to him about other things. And then he tells him, by the way, I don't see you coming to shul. We miss you. Why don't you come? He says, no, Rabbi, I have a set thing that I do at home. He says, listen, come every other week just for me. I want to be able to smile and to see you. And the man started coming to shul. He started bringing his children. His children give classes sometimes now. He was able to turn families, make them Shomerei Shabbat. Every family that had one potential, he took them up another step. He was able to take them up a step and another step.
Amazing. Rabbi Beyda.
There were people, especially in the history of the community, going from regular Baalei Batim, working people, to a place, if you come here tonight, you'll see about 700 to 800 people sitting and learning Torah from age 8 to 80. They're all downstairs. And there's 10 places like that today. It all came from Hacham Baruch. But he had a way that people were not threatened by the rabbi. What does that mean? You're getting too religious. You can't go. There are a lot of people kept their kids away from rabbis. A young man came to our class. We learned early in the morning before Shachrit. He comes to our class, and we see he doesn't read too well. He thinks pretty well, but he doesn't have the background. So after 1 or 2 times coming, I told him, how come you came to this class? Now, I did it like the rabbi. I didn't attack him. I just was curious. He says, my father is afraid for me to learn with anybody else because I might become a black hat or too religious. But Hacham Baruch, he knows it'll be okay. Today, that man's children are Talmidei Chachamim. He is a Talmid Chacham. And how did he start? With broken Hebrew that he learned in school and the love of Hacham Baruch. And his father's respect for the fact, if he's learning Hacham Baruch, my child is safe.
Tell him the one about when you were giving a class and he kept the man to ask you, who's the rabbi, you kept saying the rabbi.
I gave a class in the Torah Center on Shabbat downstairs. And it was a pretty well-attended class. A table, square, 4. And 2 young men, not from the community, but Sephardim, came to the class. And they always sat opposite me, like over there. And in every class, there's no way that the words the rabbi said, or the rabbi told me, or the rabbi didn't come out. So I finish a class, it's right before Mincha, I'm trying to get ready to go sully, not daven. I went to go pray. The guy comes on and he says, excuse me, I come here every week. I just have to ask you one question. Who's the rabbi? I said, if you come to Rabbi Raymond Beyda class, ask anybody who the rabbi is, and you'll know it's Hacham Baruch Ben-Haim. We, Cham Yaakov, we had the zachut of being close to him. And their mother is an Eshet Chayil beyond belief, who served him, allowed him to do what he loved doing. And I have a cute story. One time we were there, and I spent a lot of time in the house, because whenever I wasn't doing something, I go see the rabbi. We sit down and talk. And we're sitting down and talking, and a man comes in with a question. Knocks on the door, she brings him in, sit down. Rabbi, I have a question. And he asks a complicated halachic question. So in the background, she's cleaning the dining room table, and she says, mutar. And the rabbi turns to me and says, Rachamim, it's so easy to live with a posek.
Unbelievable, beautiful story. Gentlemen, there's something I feel like we must mention, even as we draw this interview to a close. There's so many, his impact was felt in so many different ways, but I think the Tehillim really impacted Klal Yisrael, for sure the broader Syrian Jewish community. Let's talk a little bit about that chapter. What do we mean when we speak about Hacham's Tehillim?
It's a funny story. When I was in Eretz Yisrael one time in a taxi cab, I walked into a taxi cab on a Friday afternoon. The man turned on the radio. All of a sudden I hear my father's Tehillim in the middle of Yerushalayim being sung in a taxi cab in Yerushalayim out of the blue. I was floored. I was like, how did it get all the way over here already? But tens of thousands were given out, both 8-track tape cassettes, then regular cassettes, then CDs, then USBs. Now it's available online.
אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים ובדרך חטאים לא עמד.
Leil Kippur, he's saying Kam Rabbi Shimon on Leil Kippur. It's a Zohar piece that you read when you open up. The lights went out in the shul. Everyone starts screaming, lights, lights. There's 1,000 people in the shul. He just keeps reading straight as if he's looking at the book. Who knows Kam Rabbi Shimon? I don't even know 3 words from it by heart. He knows the whole thing.
That's the
And just to add to that, he was learning with Chavruta Hilchot Shchita, I think. Yes. And they were learning a shach, and all of a sudden he gets up to make himself a tea, and he just continues saying the shach be'al peh, by heart. Yes. I mean, this is why you need to buy this book, because we didn't even touch on his incredible genius in Torah.
One of the reasons people told me don't make the book, because no matter what you write, it's not going to cover any amount of what he was. But
you got to buy the book. I feel the book, first of all, is a Sefer Musar. You learn so many things from it. It's fascinating because it covers so many periods of history. I encourage everyone, Syrian community, Ashkenazi community, whoever you are, go out there, buy the book. I'm just going to warn you though, if you pick it up, you're not going to be able to put it down. Buy it for your kids, buy it for your friends, buy it for anyone that you know. This is a book it's a once in a lifetime read. And when we read it, it should be a zechut, it should be a merit for his very lofty soul in Gan Eden, for his whole family, for those people that sponsored the book. And my friends, it's been an honor. We should get together for smachot and to discuss beautiful things like Hacham Baruch.